Hey everyone, it's us again. I'm Natasha.
And I'm Christian.
So, I know last time we kind of spoke about boundaries in a relationship, and I introduced my lovely partner, Christian. So, I thought today I would talk a little bit about core values and core beliefs. So, just a little bit about our background, a little bit of our background is we met each other kind of later in life. I was 33 years old. I had to think there for a second. I'm not going to tell you how old I am now. And Christian was 37 years old when we met. And generally, when people meet later in life, and people can attest to this, is that people are more stuck in their ways. They kind of live a certain lifestyle, they have certain values, certain beliefs, and it becomes more and more ingrained the older that we become. That being said, at any age, I think that there's two core things to a successful relationship, and that's core values and that's communication. So that's why today I thought we'd focus on the core values. Just speaking about myself, I knew that going into a relationship, I had to find somebody who understood that some of my core values were hard work. I put in a lot of hours at work, as a lot of people know. And when you put in a lot of hours at work, some other people, if you're with somebody, might be a little bit upset at that, or might say, why aren't you home all the time? Or why are you working so much? So I had to find somebody with a similar or the same work ethic as I had. I also value travel. I really love traveling. I like to go away. I like to see the world. So it probably wouldn't work if I found somebody that didn't like to travel. I don't like using substances, so I'm not into like marijuana or any of that stuff. So it wouldn't work if I was into if somebody else was. He's laughing at me, but it's true. I promise I'm not lying. But I do like to have the occasional glass of wine. I also, my family is very important to me. But let's even dig a little bit deeper into that, because I could say my family is very important to me, and Christian could say my family is very important to me, but how we see family could be different. So I could say my family is important to me, but I see my family once every 2 months and be okay with that. Whereas he might see his mother once or twice a week, and I might say, well, that's a little bit much. So it's really kind of digging in deeper and kind of finding out a little bit about your partner. And of course, nobody's fully, completely compatible, but there's certain things that are very important that you kind of have you're on the same page about, right?
Sure.
So I kind of spoke about my core values. I don't know if you wanted to tell the audience what your core values are, and maybe why you think that our values are similar, and maybe some that you might find that are a little bit even different.
Sure.
And the ones that are different, like how it might cause a little bit of conflict in a relationship as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely touched on an important one, the work ethic piece, and like work and how you live your life on the day to day kind of defines the life you lead and the person that you kind of turn out to be. So with your work ethic, a very, very strong one. I too share a similar work ethic in that when I set my mind to something, or I tend to start something, I want to put 100% into it. I want to see it through. And I think that a partner to someone who has that kind of work ethic needs to be on the same page, just because if one person who is driven is with someone who is lazy, the driven person will get annoyed with the lazy person, and the lazy person will never really understand what's going on with
what we consider lazy, somebody else might not consider lazy.
True. So a very relative
So we're not
term.
calling people lazy, okay?
Absolutely. Apologies but it's a very relative term. But at the end of the day, you just got to make sure that you guys are both on the same page in that regard, I think. And then in terms of family, again, a very solid, important role in any relationship. If family is important to one person, it likely, is a discussion that comes up in the relationship for sure. And like you said, frequency of visitation and things of that nature. I think seeing someone's family X amount of times per week it's just a definition at the end of the day. I think as long as two people kind of agree with one another in terms of, okay, the family is part of my life, it plays a role in my life, then then that really kind of encompasses it. I think it really only falls by the wayside if, say, you start to think, okay, well, maybe they're encroaching on our relationship, or maybe they're, taking too big a role in the relationship, and that's when people wouldn't be on the same page. So as long as I think the overall effect of family is, apples to apples comparison in the relationship, then I think that's the important piece.
Can I mention something in this? And I think it's important to our viewers because, especially like a lot of my clients, they're often with somebody of a different cultural background than themselves.
Right.
So the idea of family is often different, or sometimes certain values are different. And I know that, just to put it out there, at first when me and Christian were together and he saw the way that I spoke to my parents, he was a little bit taken aback. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Because I'm quite assertive. I call it assertive with my mother and my father. If I don't like something or disagree with them or want them to do something different, I will straight up tell them. And Christian at first found that to be quite rude. I was pretty straightforward with them and very blunt. Not sugarcoating things. And my mom would talk to me the same way, and it was kind of the relationship that we have and still have together. And I was a bit taken aback when Christian was always so respectful to his mother, and just no matter what, I just found him like extremely respectful, so she could, to me, do anything and then he'd still be super respectful. So I was a bit like taken aback. And then even as a therapist, I work with people of so many different cultures. I was still trying to process it, as you probably noticed, right?
Yeah.
And maybe you can tell the viewers maybe how that difference played out in our relationship and maybe why you decide to go about that route. I know it's cultural and kind of other aspects.
Sure. I don't think there is a right and wrong in the way family interaction is. I think, as long as we can be accepting of one another's attitudes, one another's upbringings, one another's families, that's the important thing, is the respect for one another. But at the end of the day, there is no right or wrong. There is no rule that says you have to speak to your family who you grew up with a certain way. If at the end of the day you have a strong relationship with your family and it's one that has, kept them involved in your life, has been very beneficial to both, parties, then at the end of the day, that's just the right way for you. And as long as one can respect that for the other person, I think that's really all that matters.
I think he's avoiding answering my question a little bit.
I think it's that acceptance. It took me a while, I think, to come to the realization that my way is not the only way, and that acceptance is what made it such that I could see how it's not just this way that you have to speak to your parents.
Or maybe I even had trouble with that acceptance. And
Yeah,
accepting that
sure.
that's how you speak to your mother,
Yeah.
no matter what.
Yeah.
So what have we learned? Acceptance is key, guys. We'll leave it at that for now so that we don't bore you. But thank you again for joining us. Take care.
Bye, guys.